sound effects could be digital, electronic, or even based on real-life sounds. Just imagine yourself surrounded by nature, cheered on by an audience.
Robert, how are you doing, sir?
Or making a great entrance in a helicopter. Whatever it may be.
Fun way without spending hours in the gym.
Our producers have over 10,000 elements to work with. I'm sure one of them will be perfect for your project.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
Welcome back, everybody, Coast to Coast. I'm your host, Anthony Marcus. In today's guest, Good Day Asia, we have one of the most inspiring, promising authors. Please do welcome David Keith Sumrell.
Thank you, Marcus.
Right. You know what? I'm so impressed. You made 189,808 listeners right now. Wow. We've tried to advertise your book just for 8 hours, but you've gained a lot of listeners all over the world. So I think the book was very useful, I could say. Can you share us a little something about the book first, David?
Which one are you talking about? Which book do you want to know about specifically?
We would love to know about the book ERACISM.
You're returning from God's Light of Hope?
No. I would like to discuss. We would like to hear something from your book that's gonna be ERACISM. Through God's holy love.
ERACISM. Through God's holy love. ERACISM means eliminating racism and claiming its sacred miracle through God's holy love.
Right.
That I just wrote that. I'd say about 3 months ago. I just had it published in October. And what that is, it's a book that's taken me 35, 40 years to write. And God has prepared the way for me to be able to write this book at the time I wrote it, which was a few months back. And I could not have written it before then, even if I had ever thought about doing so.
Whoa. Real? So, okay. I want to make it clear. How long have you been writing this book? 30 years?
All right. Can I share that story with you real brief? I was stage 4 melanoma cancer. I was sent to Duke. It started in my eye. It metastasized throughout my body and went into my lungs, my liver, all my organs, my lymph system, and my brain. And they sent me to Duke Medical for a Hail Mary type of chemotherapy program. Well, my doctors advised me that going up there and getting that Hail Mary was going to kill me. And I said, I never asked the Lord to save my life, but I said, Lord, I said, I've been all over the world helping people. And if it's your will for me to come home, I'm ready. I said, but if you give me the opportunity, I'll write 3 books in your honor. Now, I'd never written a book before.
So this is the first book that
Yes,
you
sir.
wrote. Wow.
Now we're talking about this happened in 2004.
2004, you were diagnosed cancer, right?
Had been past diagnosed. I had been PET scanned. I'd had every test you could have, and they said that at Duke, my condition was so bad, so far advanced that they couldn't even give me experimental chemotherapy.
Wow. Awesome, you got it.
When they did that, when the doctor told me that, Marcus, I looked up and I said, "Thank you, Lord. Now you and I can work this out together."
Amen.
And the doctor looked at me and he said, "We'll try to keep you comfortable till you're gone." And my sister's crying right beside me. She's crying her eyes out. And I looked at him and I said, "Doc, how long do I have?" He said, "I don't think you have a month."
Whoa. But how many years? I
said, "Do you need me anymore?" He said, "No." So I looked at my sister and I said, "Honey," I said, "Lynn," I said, "this is not in the doctor's hands. This is in God's hands." And I said, "Whatever his will is, will be done." So she stopped crying. We went to the car. On the way home, I prayed and I said, "Lord, I put everything in your hands, always have. I've tried to all my life. And I can't do anything but put this in your hands. I can't touch it." And I went home, I got in bed, and for about 30 days I stayed in bed because I was so sick from a flu shot I'd had. Well, I realized when everybody else is preparing for me to die, I said, I got to get up out of bed and I got to write my covenant to God. I've got to do what I said I'll do. So I got up and I wrote my first book in 12 weeks. As soon as I put the end on the first book, I started my second book.
Wow.
And when I got done with my second book, was about the time it took me about 8 weeks to write the second book. And the second book was about a case I worked on where the guy was a murderer. Well, when I got done writing that book, it was like that had come out of me, and almost like that had been the cancer, because it was at the same time that my doctor and I were looking at each other, and I went in and he was looking at the computer and he was still surprised I was alive. And he went back and looked at the last PET scan that had just happened, and he says, "You don't have any cancer in your body at all."
Wow.
He said, "We need to do more tests, David. I've never." He said, "This is unbelievable. This is a miracle." I said, "Yes, sir, it is."
Wow.
I have lived a blessed life. I've gone all over the world helping people. I've been very blessed I've been alongside people that have died right beside me, and I'm still here, never got a scratch. God's always protected me. Now, for what, I don't know exactly yet, but I do know that everything in my life has been affected because I put my faith first. And I've been I can only tell you I've been blessed.
This story needs to be told.
Well, I just told you.
Needs to be, look at
the truth. The truth is powerful.
Right. How blessed you are. And I think there's a purpose why you are still here, right? You're an instrument, right? And God used you. You're so lucky. For me, situation like this, you're the chosen one.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know one thing. The book ERACISM now that you were asking about, I had to go through a lot of things let me just take you back to what I did back in the 80s. You've heard I've fallen and can't get up from California. the company that, okay. Well, during the course of the 80s, right after I was in the solar business, but that took a plunge and a lot of things happened. But anyway, I asked the Lord, what am I to do? And a situation happened where I was to meet a gentleman, and he didn't show up that morning. Well, people that knew him and I didn't said that was not in his character, that he should be there. So I went to I looked up his address. Through his phone number, I looked up his address and I went to his house. Make a long story short, he said, this is the first time I've ever overslept like this, blah, blah, blah. And we came to an understanding that I told him, I said, my grandmother, my yaya, she had a stroke the night before. I said, and she laid on the floor all night long. And she got prompt medical attention. I said, she would have been alive today, probably. And he said, do you know how powerful what you're saying is? You came over to my house to make sure that didn't happen to me. And I said, yes, sir, I did. And he said, you don't even know me. I said, well, I knew to come by. And he said, well, all this, the way it's happened, he says, I'm going to tell you something. He says, you've touched me. So that's what gave me the vision to do it. I knew that God had intervened and brought us together. And so I pursued it. I went to my priest. I said, look, this is what's happened. He said, David, he said, the need is so great. He says that what you have here, he says can only come from God. He says, and I believe you're trying to make a difference. So anyway, I pursued that. I ran a pilot program. I was monitoring in 3 states. Had just been offered to $350,000 from my company, but they wanted control. So I turned it down, and shortly after that, I get convicted of embezzlement for $1,500 over a computer, because people in my company that I brought in were looking to get rich instead of what we were doing. And I had the mission, not the money. I financed everything. I paid for everything. The $350,000 would have paid for me to be able to get back what I'd put in. Well, I never got any. It took me 20 years to get my name back through the courts. I went to the Supreme Court of the United States. I went through the governors. I tried everything, and I could not get my name back. They took everything I had except my dignity. And through all that humiliation I was suffering through, because I had an impeccable reputation, and all of a sudden it was tarnished, and I felt tarnished from the inside out. No matter how much I knew I was right, I knew that it didn't matter. It's what they said, because it just changed my life. But I said, God, I don't. And through this, He promised me that I was going to have everything I'd ever lost. I would have it back. But I can't tell you when it and how it was all said, but it was all done. And I lost my company, and I asked, maybe, I don't know, within a few months after having to shut everything down, I asked the Lord, I said, why am I hanging on to the name Guardian? And He said, God unites all races, denominations, and all nations. And let me tell you something, I had no idea what that meant. I had no inkling of wondering how that was an answer to what I was asking. But I wrote it down immediately. I pulled off the side of the road and I wrote it down. And that was back in 80, let's see, I closed down. It was 89, 90. That was 1990 when that happened. Well, it's taken 31 years for me to write the story of racism. But through that time, just like everything else that I went through, God never let me suffer in any way. He brought me through everything with everything I needed. I never asked for anything, but I always had what I needed, and I had love, I had respect. People that knew me knew what I was, who I was. I had the blessings, but I also had to curse, and I was living through all that, and it was tough. But through the doors that were opened, had I not gone through what I had gone through, I would have never been put in a position to be able to do the things I did later and throughout, all the way up until now, which gave me the contents to write my books, because my books are about stories that are true. Everything that's been written is actual, and it's all happened.
Wow. I'm speechless.
Anthony, me too, my friend. I honestly mean that, but from my heart, that you would even listen to my story.
I'm speechless. And all I can say is that everybody who's listening to you right now, they know how blessed you are.
My book, ERACISM, talks about love. It doesn't talk about any of the ugliness going on with racism and all the crap that's being pushed and promoted out there. It talks about love. It talks about saving 2 black police officers in the field in the middle of a black community when they were trying to apprehend somebody that was bigger and stronger than they were. And I got out and I saved both of them. You've heard of Miriam Ibrahim?
Yeah? Of course.
All right. The Lord said to me that I had to step up to the plate because this woman was being persecuted because she was a Christian and she was going to be put to death. I immediately contacted the Sudanese embassy in Washington. I spoke to the assistant to the ambassador. He said the ambassador wasn't in. I told him that I wanted to take her punishment and I wanted to take her death sentence if it had to be for her freedom and for her family to be let loose. He said, would you put that in writing for the ambassador himself? I said, yes, sir, I will. I put it in writing. He gave me the ambassador's phone number, fax number. He said, the ambassador will be back later. He said, I will review this with him. And from what I found out, she was released 4 days later.
Oh.
Did I have anything to do with that? I don't know. It was almost like I was trying to call the bluff of somebody trying to persecute, but at the same time, to me, it was even more important because how do you stand up and say, I'm a Christian man, but yet you watch a woman die because she is a Christian or wants to believe in it and be a Christian? You know, I think we all have responsibilities. I don't ask anybody to take on the belief I take, but that's just my personal belief. I did the same thing for Mrs. Bibi over in Pakistan.
A lot of listeners right now are crying, right? You do have a very good story, and we wish we could invite you again, David, to share the gospel, to share how big is the God is.
Absolutely. I at any time that you've got the time and you want to share anything else, I'll be more than happy. You ask the questions. I've got a website. It's BradleyDallasNorth.net or .com, and it shows my books. It shows my stories.
What's your website again?
BradleyDallasNorth.net or .com. And that's my pseudonym. That's how I had to start writing my books, because of the projects I worked on. The first 2 books are the projects I worked on. They don't reference God. But if you understand reading between the lines, you'll see how I stayed alive. My 3rd book encompasses God. But see, I had made a covenant to God to write 3 books. And after I had written all 3 of them, I thought at the time, well, I've done my covenant. Well, needless to say, I hadn't finished it, because the first 2 books didn't represent God. They represented the projects I worked on. They gave me something to write about. My 3rd book, 3 Swords of One Light, 7 Miracles of Faith, takes you back through the things that kept me alive, places I'd been, things I'd done, and how the Lord had been there to make sure that I was alive. later on, I actually was driving and I made a joke to myself. I said, I could be in trouble because going to heaven, if I get a chance to see St. Peter, is not the time I want to be arguing with him about who I am. And of course, let me put a little perspective on that. My pseudonym was Bradley Dallas North. My first 3 books were written as Bradley Dallas North. Well, that didn't do anything for David Sumrell. And as far as putting my name out there, I wasn't trying to put my name out there. I was just trying to protect the people I was working with. But at the same time, later on, I started thinking about it from that perspective of going to St. Peter and going up there and saying, yes, he says, what's your name, my son? And I said, my name is David Sumrell. Oh, yes, I see in my book that you were supposed to write 3 books for the Lord as a promise, and you haven't done that. And to myself, I thought, man, but St. Peter, I did write them. He says, you did? I said, yes, sir, check Bradley Dallas North. And he says, well, okay. And he looks in his book, and that name's not in there. Now, when you get to heaven, are you going to want to be confrontational with St. Peter if he's at that gate? No, sir. Or Jesus either. I'm going to want to make sure that, so anyway, I wrote my 3rd book. After I wrote my 4th book, I wrote my 4th book in my name. And then I turned around and wrote a book of poetry. I had a book of poetry from all over the world. I got Christians from all over the world, Pakistan, India, people from all over the country, United States, and got 275 pages of beautiful poetry, Christian poetry. Right. And I was very blessed to be able to start writing poetry in 1990. Now, I hate to say this to you, but I'm 6'4". I was 320 pounds. I was a big man. I was one of the best in fighting and all this kind of stuff. I went all over the world helping people do things, and I wasn't the kind of guy to sit down and write poetry. I didn't even read poetry, but I wasn't the one to sit down and write it. And then I wrote. The next thing I know, I had poetry to presidents. I had poetry to John and Ramsey and Patsy Ramsey, which I actually got letters back. I've got to presidents. I've got to the Queen. I've gotten letters from all these people back with regards to my poetry, and I'm like, wow, I never thought about writing a book. When I got involved in writing a book, it was only because I didn't want to say to God, I would write 1 book in your honor. I said I wanted to write 3, because if I could write 1, I could sure write 3. But if I only chose to step up and say I could write 1, he might not think that was worthy enough. So I wasn't going to take any chances, and that's kind of how I've always been. Is I put God first, and if everything else will be satisfied as long as I know I'm doing right for Him.
Wow, I believe so, and I do agree in what you're saying. I do believe. So now, David, is it okay that we will call you David?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
So David is your real name, right?
I'm sorry? Bradley Dallas North is just a pseudonym. It's a legal name I got when I went into the courts and got the name legally so I could write under it.
Oh, wait. So where you came from, what country, or are you staying here?
I'm in Virginia, in the United States.
Mm-hmm. So you migrated here?
I live in Virginia Beach, actually.
Wow. That's quite different. So right now, what we need from you is just to commit that we do have Sunday's best. Right.
I'm sorry, I you're breaking up.
We do have a Sunday special. That is one of our
yes, sir.
That will discuss authors becoming to successful ones. So we would like to support you, right? We would like to support you.
Yes.
you and your beautiful wife. All right, to how to make things easier, how to make things possible, right? While you are still in your major trip.
Well, I trust in the Lord to put things to make sure things are right. And I want to share something with you. I've never tried to sell any of my books. I lost my son in 2007. And what he said to me was, Dad, he said, if you never sell a book, he said, you didn't write them to sell. You wrote them for God. My son died at 21 years old.
Wow.
And when he died, I looked up and said, thank you, Lord, for every minute, every hour, and every second you gave me with him.
Wow. You really touches their heart. And because of that, we would like to thank you as well for putting some, answer to our, questions in our mind. Right? It's all about love.
It's all about love. That's what Jesus came down to tell us. That's why he came here.
Yes. If no love here in Earth, definitely every day is war.
Well, we've got love. Each one of us got love inside of us. I think what's happened is, as a society, we have had to focus our love more towards our inners instead of our outers because of fears and things that we shouldn't have to worry about. And I think that deep down in us, we all love. We have to. If we don't, then we're the ones there's something missing. And when we love each other and we stop looking at each other with the understanding of your color of your skin, because God doesn't recognize the color of skin. He recognizes our souls, our spirits, our love, and our heart. All that stuff is the same in everybody. It's just something that we all have to work on.
Mm-hmm. I believe. So this coming Sunday, David. What
time Sunday?
Sunday special. Sunday's best special. It's gonna be 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Your time or my time?
Your time.
My time. Okay, 6 p.m. my time. Hey, Marcus, let me ask you something. What's the name of your radio station?
Easy Listening Radio. By the way, if you want to listen to this interview, we would like to let you visit near. We would like to send you an email, a recording for this, and we will also upload this one into YouTube. So
I would love that if you wouldn't mind. I mean, if you think it's worthy of.
Believe me, a lot of people will listen to you, and believe me, it's massive sales will come. Right. By the way, if you don't mind me asking, David, what do you do? Are you a full-time writer right now, or what?
I just turned 65 in November. I run crabs from all summer long up until right around the end of November, early part of December. That's what I do for I'm retired. I'm medically retired, based on the cancer and everything. But I live an energetic life. I've got grandsons that my daughter, they're 11 and 7. Man, I have the best time in the world with them. They've gotten me back. I'm down. I told you I was 320 pounds. When I was in Africa, they called me Big Daddy. They didn't know who I was, but they called me Big Daddy. I walked in front of a mirror and I saw why they called me Big Daddy, because all I saw was a big old stomach. I could not see my face or anything, but I saw this big old gut, and it looked like, and I said, that's why they're calling me Big Daddy. Well, I'm now 245 pounds, and been that way for the last 6 years, and I feel better. getting older. I'm nowhere near like I used to be, but you know, hey, I'm thankful to be here. You know, whatever condition it is. And I'm in good condition, but I've got I keep busy all the time. I've got a beautiful wife. I've got 2 boys. I got a son that's 23 years old who has cerebral palsy, and he can keep you occupied. And you know, we're in scouting. We do all kinds of things that my boy, one son is Eagle Scout. These are my stepsons, but they're the love of my life. You know, they're just like my sons. And one's an Eagle Scout, and the other one, the one that's got cerebral palsy, he's on his way. He's life right now, and he's on his way, trying to make it, and they're allowing him because of his disability and because of the way, I mean, just they've done it the Boy Scouts had it set up for that. If you had a child that had real bad disabilities, but the way my son is he has been an inspiration to so many young kids when they've seen the difficulties he goes through every day just to be able to go out and be able to walk. But he gets up every morning. He gets up with a smile on his face. He's got love in his heart, and he's just a beautiful boy that has shown people, you know, no matter what it is, always give it your best.
Wow, exactly.
So
exactly.
I can't answer you onto what I do because I try to do everything I can.
Okay. Once again, author of the book ERACISM, Through God's Holy Love. Thank you so much, David Keith Sumrell. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, Marcus. God bless you.
God bless.
Thank you, sir. Okay, bye-bye.